Hello from the easing of lockdown 3.0, everyone. Today, we are joined yet again by Joe Ward for the second Star Wars Galaxy's Edge video.
Hello, viewers.
We will now review both Star Wars Galaxy's Edge rides, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run and Rise of the Resistance. If you viewers haven't checked out our other two Galaxy's Edge videos, then make sure that you do, as they are on the channel right now. We're going to begin with our first ride. It is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Now, this opened with the park in May 2019, and it has since hosted over 1 million guests. Overall, very successful, but some issues, which we will point out later. So it's not a ride we start with, it's a greeting from a scarily realistic Hondo Ohnaka. Fans will know him from the Clone Wars and Rebels. This is a very, very detailed animatronic. He moves just like the character, he talks just like the character, even the same voice actor, and he's even accompanied by his trusty astromech R5P8. Very nice to see. And Hondo then instructs us that we are to board the Millennium Falcon and steal some coaxium fuel, just like in Solo: A Star Wars Story.
For all the rides in Galaxy's Edge, again, they can attest to the immersion and, again, attention to detail, but also the exhilaration of Smuggler's Run and rides like it.
Yeah, so on to the actual ride. We get to kind of mill around the Millennium Falcon cargo hold, sit at the famous circular sofa and play Dejac, see Han Solo's little navigation seat. Even the dirty beige colour of the walls and the circular curvature, it was properly captured. It looked just like it would in the films. Very, very impressive. And after we've had that little experience, our 6 guests are given one of 3 roles. We enter the Millennium Falcon cockpit, and I'm just going to note one of the issues with this ride now, because there are 6 seats instead of 4, as there should be. So, meaning that 2 seats have magically appeared. And I think this is quite inaccurate, really. I know why they've done this for crowd control and queue control. It's seen as the whole idea of Galaxy's Edge is to revolve around realism and have that in-universe experience. For the designers to just add in 2 more seats just because they can, I think it was just annoying.
I can see why the fans who have attended for the experience altogether, and maybe the ones who are less knowledgeable.
The majority of fans wouldn't care, but there's the small minority that would care.
The designers are really trying to navigate a difficult path between pleasing the ones who wish for everything to be accurate and equally to be practical as well, as you say, with crowd control and all the other reasons why they've done 6 seats instead of 4. I think this is an example of where they've taken a certain route to appease one group, and naturally the other group won't necessarily be happy with that.
The actual ride experience was superb. As you sat in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, there's a wraparound screen, where the windshield is, and this looks absolutely real. All above and around you, flying through this crystal clear Star Wars industrial scene or dockyard. TIE fighters give chase. There's explosions all around. Very bright, very intense. I've never seen a video screen looking so realistic. And after, I think, the heist of the coaxium fuel succeeds, the flight ends with a beautiful aerial view of Batuu. And again, enforcing this realism, the Millennium Falcon then lands on the planet we are meant to be, which is Batuu. So an excellent way to end this ride. The attention to distinctive detail is unsurpassable, rarely. I think that is another issue to this ride, and that is the actual execution of the Millennium Falcon layout. Now, the actual architecture was superb. There's no issues there. It looks like the real deal. But the way that the corridors are laid out of the main hold of the Millennium Falcon, there's quite a walk to get to the cockpit. And again, this is to situate as many different piloting stations as possible, again, for crowd control and queue control. But the circular in-universe design of the Millennium Falcon, that wasn't really upheld here. And again, I understand the practical reasons for that. It's just the little nitty-bitty things that take away from the realism.
Oh, yes, no.
One more mistake. Third of the 3 mistakes I noticed. Of course, you can't be expected to pilot the Millennium Falcon with great intricacy like you would in Star Wars Squadrons, for instance. But the other 2 positions, the gunner and the technician, it's button masher gameplay, and you would think for something on the cutting edges of technology, as Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run is, they could have something a bit more fulfilling than simply press a button to fix the Millennium Falcon. No, I imagine control panel actively doing something very engaging. And I know it needs to be a simple experience. You know, seeing these random buttons on the wall, very circular, very defined, it didn't really seem, again, like the Millennium Falcon to me. And the pilot, that is by far the best experience, and the other two maybe slightly underwhelmed in that respect.
That is a sentiment reflected in many of the TripAdvisor reviews I've read as well. Although
you like your TripAdvisor, don't you?
Well, I like to collect a variety of evidence from multiple different accounts to fabricate the best possible judgment on all aspects of the ride.
Do you go around York and, ask people their views?
I do. Yesterday I was in York and I was knocking on people's doors asking them what they thought of Galaxy's Edge, and the results are in. They liked it a lot.
Good. I'm glad.
Although they did highlight 3 mistakes with the ride.
I'm glad everybody thinks the same way as me.
Oh, of course.
Anyway, we're going to move on to the second ride now. Rise of the Resistance, fairly newer, opened December 2019, a few months after the original opening of the park. Now, I was mostly singing the praises of Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, but where that ride impressed, I think Rise of the Resistance simply blew out of the park. I've been on quite a few rides throughout my life, but this one, I think some have labelled Rise of the Resistance as the greatest, most advanced ride ever, and I don't think this is exaggerated.
Yes, from my ONS studies that I've carried out about the Rise of Resistance,
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
I don't think that'd be quite as acclaimed.
The greatest film of all time. No,
controversial. Well, not controversial, actually. That's another story for another day.
Rise of Resistance, an incredible amount of people who have experienced the ride who have reflected a similar sentiment, even to that exaggerated hyperbolic one that you proposed there, that it is the greatest ride that you can go on in the West right now. The cutting edge experience and immersion and the exhilaration of the ride and the attention to detail, which we've talked about throughout, the extent to which it really just throws you into the Star Wars universe and exposes you to all those most exhilarating and immersive elements about it, makes it one of the best rides you can go on in a theme park at the moment.
I think what you mentioned about cutting edge technology, I do agree. I was having a look on the little Wikipedia article for this ride, and you can see there's some very new patented technology that Disney are using in this ride. At the start, when us guests are ushered into the new ITS resistant transport, a very nice ship, as you can see there. There is a hologram of Rey, voice acted by Daisy Ridley, and this hologram is in front of you, and it is a hologram. As far as you can see, it's a working hologram right there, and there's very specialized technology Disney used to get this just right. Very advanced technology continues as we are on this ship and we're captured onto a First Order Star Destroyer. This ship, to maintain this realism, it's on a turntable so that it turns around, so that when we emerge into the First Order hangar, we're not simply walking out of the other side of the ship, we're walking out the way we came in. So although most guests won't even register this fact, it just shows that Disney want to outdo expectations and do what hasn't been done before. And this turntable, it uses magnets. You can't see a track, you can't see a railroad randomly in the First Order hangar. Groundbreaking technology absolutely everywhere.
If I may be the one to highlight an issue this time, it's almost a testament to how good of an experience it is, but the one thing I've come across a lot is that it has a unique queuing system and how you actually go about getting onto the ride. I'm sure Oliver will go onto this in a moment, but it seems to have a very kind of a mixed bag of contentment, let's say, with this new queuing system, and brings in a bit too much bureaucracy, makes it a bit too difficult and almost impossible.
It's your favourite word, isn't it?
It is. It is. Because it is the world's worst problem right now. Difficult for some people to actually be able to get onto the ride. It makes it very difficult to book. It makes it impossible to schedule it without mass preparation to do so. So that's maybe a criticism that you could bring in.
As I mentioned at the start of the video, I don't have the typical queuing experience as with this Virgin Holidays Fan Flight experience. We got late night access to both of these rides to an extent where where we walked literally through the queuing system with absolutely nobody there. And then we were onto the ride, very small number of us. So I will constantly thank myself lucky for that experience. But I understand, with the popularity of this ride, of course, there will be problems with the demand. But I think, especially in this ride, Disney has coped well. As you can see, guests are siphoned off in all different directions. I think only once do you run into like another group of guests when you're on the little escape pod. Again, enhances that realism. So I'll just take you through what actually happens on this ride now. As I mentioned, we're on the transport, and here we're introduced to Nine Num from episode 6, just like Hondo, a very realistic animatronic there. And just ahead of him, we've got Lieutenant Beck, Mon Calamari, just like Admiral Akbar. You're about a meter away from this character, probably less than that, and you can see he looks just like the Mon Calamari he should. Skin is perfect. He talks just like he should. And this, along with the Rey hologram right in front of your eyes, it's absolutely authentic in Star Wars realism as it should be. And the ship is then captured into the First Order Star Destroyer, and here we emerge into the very famous location of the hangar. Right in front of your eyes, there's 50 fully decked out stormtroopers. There's even a full-sized TIE SF fighter on the wall. And although these stormtroopers are, again, animatronics, they stand stock still, which is fine. That's what stormtroopers do. A few of them kind of turn their head a little bit. Maybe in an ideal world, these would have had a little bit more movement to them, just to suggest that they're more real than they are. I'm nitpicking here. It looked the part. It looked beautiful.
One thing I noticed about it is the hangar entrance into space looks so authentic and real for something that's realistically inside.
After this hangar experience, we're then put into lines and interrogated again by these First Order officers. Just like I mentioned earlier with Kylo Ren's appearance, it's very intimidating. These actors are actors. They're not just bog standard workers on a ride. They take their role seriously. They know the character they're meant to be portraying, and it's done beautifully. And we then go into this prison cell where we're broken out by Finn, sit in this escape car, and then we see Kylo Ren and General Hux discussing on an above platform. It looks just like Adam Driver and Donald Gleason. They're not animatronics. They're actually just a trick of shadows and lighting, interestingly enough. Very, very convincing. The actors, again, did their own voice dialogue. And then the whole window in front of you blows out. A very clever kind of air suction technique used here. You think that there is a space vacuum right in front of you. Then Kylo Ren proceeds to cut through a bulkhead with a lightsaber. Again, it's just lighting, but I think, you even get the heat from the lightsaber, the noise, very, very authentic. You then race throughout this Star Destroyer trying to escape. You pass under a turbo laser cannon battery, and this reminded me, just like in episode 3, when the battery's firing at the Invisible Hand, the battle over Coruscant in the opening. And it felt just like that, because you see through this viewport of the attacking Resistance ship, and it felt just like,
oh, batteries, fire!
Exactly that moment. That is one of my most memorable points of this whole experience, I would say. We then reach the escape pod, and the escape pod drops downwards, a real sense of vertical drop there, just like in the Tower of Terror ride I should reference. And then again, just like in Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, we return to Batuu, which is where our journey began, and the experience ends.
Beautiful.
And one more issue. All my problems are related to this hangar bay, and it is one of the most memorable parts of the ride, but because it's such a massive undertaking, there's, of course, more room for not fulfilling the potential. The TIE fighter docked in the corner, it looks exactly like it should, a set feature from the film. In a typical First Order hangar, you would have 3 such flights of ships, and to just see the one tucked off in a corner, I don't expect Disney to make 6 massive TIE fighters, but again, it was just something I was aware of. And that, along with the railing in front of the stormtroopers, but a similar kind of railing in front of the Millennium Falcon, just to protect these very expensive set pieces. And I understand we don't want kids jumping all over the stormtroopers. I'm nitpicking for very small issues here, and the environment design is simply the future. And you viewers will notice that we have missed out on the merchandise aspect of Galaxy's Edge, and I can confirm that we will be returning with a merchandise-orientated Galaxy's Edge review in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned.